Welcome back to our channel. We hope you will have a wonderful learning experience here with us. You can download and listen to these audiobooks at your preferred time. This is Chapter 5 of Freshman Inclusiveness course taught in all the Ethiopian universities. This chapter deals with inclusion for peace, democracy and development. It is tailored exactly to the fitting of the Ethiopian Ministry of Education curriculum but is also very useful for any related course. I am very happy you have chosen this channel in your study and politely ask that you subscribe, like and share the channel for more amazing tutorials. Now, without further ado, let's begin our course. Chapter 5, Inclusion for Peace, Democracy and Development. Inclusive education is at the heart of any strategy for peace building, democracy and development. It is through inclusive education that values, skills and knowledge which form the basis of respect for human rights and democratic principles can be developed. It is through inclusive education that the rejection of violence, and a spirit of tolerance, understanding and mutual appreciation among individuals, groups and nations can be enhanced. As a result, inclusiveness should be the first phase towards increasing participation and fight for social justice for people with disabilities, vulnerable and general populations. Inclusive education provides individuals for these populations, skills, experience and empowerment that help them to vocalize for themselves and for others aright. Inclusive education develops inclusive development in all sectors. In general, inclusive development in all sectors encourage greater acceptance of diversity of gender, culture, language, economy and politics and the formation of more tolerant, equitable and cohesive societies. Simply put, creates inclusive society. Dear learners, after the successful completion of this chapter, you will be able to define peace, democracy and development. Identify sources of exclusionary practices. Discuss exclusionary practices in the community. Discuss respecting diverse needs, culture, values, demands and ideas. Discuss conflict emanated from exclusion. Explain means and benefits of participation of the marginalized group of people. Discuss the democratic principles for inclusive practices. Explain the importance of inclusion for psychosocial development. Elaborate the importance of inclusion for economic development. Discuss the importance of inclusion for peace. Definition of peace, democracy and development. Inclusion for peace. Peace can be defined in several ways. However, for the purpose of this module, peace is defined as creating mutual understanding, positive relationship between individuals and groups. These groups may include culturally, linguistically, economically and biologically heterogeneous groups. These groups are living side by side in a harmony with reciprocated respect or create societal friendship with all the diversities without conflict. This means developed interpersonal peace through deep respect for other persons, justice, tolerance and cooperation. This means peace has a notion of society as a completeness, fulfillment, wholeness, harmony, feeling of security and well-being of an individual, a community or a society. Human being is interconnected and should be free from negative force, fear, hatred, anger, tension, violence, stress, anxiety and any kind of destructions. Peace makes the mind quiet and calm, prevents anxieties, worries, stress and fears, and awakens inner strength and confidence, develop freedom, happiness, love, joy, justice and gratitude. Peace can be achieved through formal and informal inclusive education. Take a moment to think about why education is crucial for creating conflict-free society. What kind of education could make peace in the society? Inclusive education is a foundation for inclusiveness in all aspects of life. It creates equality and equity among diverse population. Diversity refers to in terms of language, religion, socioeconomic status, culture and psychology. Equal, sameness and non-discrimination, and/or equitable, social justice and fairness, distribution of resources within the system equal and/or equitable both in terms of locations and numbers, in relation to resources such as money, trained and qualified professionals, teaching and learning materials, school buildings, and school furniture. It is important to realize inclusive education to create a society that is peaceful, democratized and developed. Hence inclusive education is crucial for fostering education that promotes the values, attitudes and behavior inherent in a culture of peace, including conflict prevention and resolution, dialogue, consensus building and active nonviolence. Promoting sustainable economic and social development by targeting the eradication of poverty and social inequalities. Promoting respect for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights at all levels. Promoting gender equality in economic, social and political decision-making. Fostering democratic participation and citizenship and supporting processes that promote and sustain democracy, advancing understanding, respect for cultural diversity, and human solidarity by promoting a dialogue among societies. Supporting participatory communication and the free flow and sharing of information and knowledge and the promotion of a culture of peace. Promoting international peace and security through action such as the promotion of general and complete disarmament. Take a moment to think about the following issues. 1. Dear student, can we solve the Ethiopian divisa problems that create conflict through inclusiveness? How? 2. Do you think exclusion create chaos in the nation? How? 3. What are other sources of conflicts? 4. How can we overcome all sources of conflicts? Contrary to the importance of inclusive education, exclusion in education creates undesirable result for a nation. Educational exclusion cut people off from full involvement in the economic and social life of their countries. As an experience of deprivation, social exclusion is often the consequence of severe horizontal inequalities, and as such it can underpin grievances that can mobilize groups for conflict. Exclusion through horizontal inequalities undermines social cohesion. Build shared values. Reduce disparities in wealth and income. Difficult to enable people to have a sense that they are engaged in a common enterprise, facing shared challenges, and that they are members of the same community. Educational inequalities reflect social inequalities more broadly. Dominant ethnic groups control state resources and may discriminate against minority groups in terms of access to social resources, such as education, and employment opportunities. Large horizontal inequalities may instead increase group cohesion among those who are marginalized, facilitating mobilization for conflict. Factors that increase the risk of the outbreak of conflict could be due to discrimination on the basis of gender, age, class, religion, disability, poverty, geographical location, etc. These may be equally important in mobilizing individuals to participate in conflict. Exclusion and inequalities may furthermore be political, social, or economic in nature, or a combination of the three. Sources of conflict. Spiritual sources of conflict. Result of original ancestors' separation from God and negative influence from evil spiritual forces. Individual sources of conflict. Disunity within the individual and confusion of values. Family sources of conflict. Family dysfunctions affect succeeding generations. National, international sources of conflict. National policies affect future generations and can lead to conflict within or between nations. Historical sources of conflict. National crimes burden future generations. Ethnic, religious resentments accumulate. Individual choice, to resolve or repeat past conflicts, rethinking the past and the future. In the absence of inclusiveness, selfishness, living only for oneself, lust, envy, exploitation, taking advantage over others, prejudice, partiality, greed, self-indulgence, vengeance, retaliation, arrogant self-importance, those are the basis of conflicts are in the minds of human being. Conflict begins within the individual. Since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed, which is inclusive education. Inclusive education is the basis for harmony. If we develop true and practical inclusive education, we can create citizens those are unselfishness and living for the well-being of others, develop self-control, give genuine service, be fair, generous, attitude of forgiveness, humility and honesty. If someone is not changed, can create conflict and have no positive impact on society. Hence, healing all the evils of today is possible only through inclusive education. Create access to quality education, focus on shaping social skills, behavior, attitudes, beliefs, values and positive human relations to build sustainable peace. How do you think we can sustain peace? Sustaining peace. It is important to expand formal and informal inclusive education with the aim of creating an inclusive society with the following competencies in young and adult populations. Skills of sifting the truth from propaganda or bias that surrounds them in every culture. Respect for the wise use of resources and appreciation for more than just the materialistic aspects of quality of life. Respect for different points of view and the ability to see the world through the eyes of others. Skills to resolve conflict in non-violent ways. The desire and ability to participate in shaping society, in their own community, their nation and the world. Building of peace requires taking the following steps. Fostering inclusion, ensuring access to justice, strengthening the social fabric and delivering good governance have repeatedly been shown to be essential to achieving development outcomes. Reaffirm a commitment to human rights, the foundation for human dignity and just societies. Human rights, including economic, social and cultural rights, are the foundation of a world order based on equality and inclusion. Foster social resilience by strengthening inclusion and addressing inequality. Peace issues are core to the discussion of resilience. Resilient societies are those where the social fabric is strong. They are just and inclusive, where the relationships between individuals, their communities and the state are based on trust and the respect, protection and fulfillment of everyone's human rights, and where there are robust mechanisms for addressing inequalities, difference and grievance. Fostering resilience is the foundation of long-term preventive efforts, from preventing conflict to reducing the impact of internal and external crises, natural and man-made, and requires action both to accompany local efforts and also to provide a supportive international environment. Think local and act global. Recommit to multilateralism as a safeguard for the most vulnerable. National implementation alone will not suffice to achieve the SDGs. 40% of the fostering the external drivers of peace, justice and inclusion requires concerted action by states, as duty holders, to support responsible trade, reduce arms flows, promote constructive financial, tax and investment practices, and to strengthen a rules-based system that creates a more effective enabling environment that privileges the long-term peace, development and human rights needs of all people and communities. protect and support civil society in fostering sustainable peace. Social, political and economic changes that contribute to increasing peace are more robust if they are owned, implemented and sustained by local actors, including youth and women. Nevertheless, civil society inclusion continues to be under threat around the world, with onerous restrictions imposed on the ability of civil society groups to be effective, speak out and access funding. We call on member states to recommit their support for and partnership with local and community actors, and for the UN system to model inclusion in all its local and global processes. Take a few minutes to reflect on the following issues. Some quotes on making of peace. Discuss each of the following quotes broadly and present them in the class. 1. Hatred and fighting cannot bring peace. We never get rid of an enemy by meeting hate with hate, we get rid of an enemy by getting rid of enmity. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. 2. When I despair, I remember that all through history the ways of truth and love have always won. Mahatma Gandhi. 3. Any life that is lost in war is a human life, be it that of an Arab or Israeli. Innocent children who are deprived of the care and compassion of their parents are ours. They are ours, be they living on Arab or Israeli land. Anwar Sadat. 4. The reason why God does not punish an enemy is that he is thinking of the enemy, a wise parents, wife and children who all love him. When you understand that heart of God, could you take revenge on your enemy? Reverend Sun Myung. Inclusion for democracy. Definition: democracy is a great philosophy of inclusion that born and grown in inclusive schools. It means the rule of the people, by the people, for the people, and where a people is to mean all human being, regardless of the diversities. Democratic schools are an educational ideal in which democracy is both a goal and a method of instruction. It brings democratic values to education and can include self-determination within a community of equals, as well as such values as justice, respect and trust of diversities. Inclusion education for democracy. Inclusive education for democracy has not been established as a central purpose for schooling in Ethiopia. Schools are the ideal place to promote democracy. One of the most important tasks of schools should be helping students to realize the values of democracy. The democratic values include is to enhance protected right, independent quality life for all, freedom, pursuit of happiness, justice, the common good, truth, respect and tolerance for diversity and partisanship. The most important function of democratic education is to make the democracy natural attitude and way of thinking of man by developing the thought of democracy in human mind. In democratic classroom, teachers treat all students equally, provide them support according to the needs and potentials, share power with students and supporting them in managing their own behaviors. Teachers provide us with as much knowledge as possible. Teachers should promote engagement in a democracy, by teaching students how democracy works and how important their role is in it. Students who have no understanding of how the democracy functions are unlikely to become engaged citizens who vote. Inclusive education sees young people not as passive recipients of knowledge, but rather as active co-creators of their own learning that help to exercise democracy. Inclusive education aims to develop real democracy through active participation by all diverse learners involved in classrooms and educational institutions. If these are in their places, everyone receives the things they need in order to develop in an orderly, sequential way into members of society. Inclusive education instills the values of cooperation, fairness and justice into the hearts of our students. In democratic education, students have the power to make decisions about their learning, because power is shared rather than appropriated in advance by a minority of people. Inclusive education, when practiced well, is very important because all children are able to be part of their community and develop a sense of belonging and become better prepared for life in the community today as children and tomorrow as adults. It provides better opportunities for learning. In the absence of democracy, exclusion is prone to be exercised, today in the school and tomorrow in the society. Hence, democracy is one of the principles of inclusiveness in the process of building an inclusive society that begun in schools. Democratic principles for inclusive practices. Inclusive education is based on 7 principles. Diversity enriches and strengthens all communities. All persons with disabilities different in their needs, potentials, learning and working styles. Their achievements according to their potentials are equally valued, respected and celebrated by society. All learners are enabled to fulfill their potential by taking into account individual requirements and needs. Inclusion for development definition. The word development is widely used to refer to a specified state of advancement or growth, a new and advanced idea, profession, physical, mental, product or an event that constitutes a new stage under changing circumstances. Development is a positive growth or change in economical, social and political aspects of a country. Any kind of development should be inclusive. Some scholars define inclusive development as a process that occurs when social and material benefits are equitably distributed across divides in society. Others focus on the voice and power to the concerns and aspirations of otherwise excluded groups. Inclusive development also has an integral focus on the achievement of equity and the rights of citizenship. Inclusive education for development. The meaning of development for an individual is that which tends towards a person realizing his or her full potential as a human being through inclusive education and then inclusive society to expand the range of choices for every human being without discrimination. Inclusive development consists of ensuring that all marginalized and excluded groups are stakeholders in development processes. It is obvious that many groups are excluded from social and economic development because of their gender, ethnicity, age, religion, disability or poverty. If there is no inclusiveness in all walks of life, development cannot be sustainable. Inclusive and sustainable development is crucial to reduce poverty in all its dimensions so that all members of the society are benefited. The goal of inclusiveness is to prevent social exclusion and creating more social inclusion that aim at including all members of society in the growth process. Social inclusion is an integral part of inclusive development. Social inclusion enhances capabilities, broadens social ties of respect and recognition, and at the collective level, enhances social bonds, cohesion, integration and solidarity among the human race. The initial emphasis of inclusion has been on economic inclusion through poverty reduction, social protection and employment creation. However, it has become increasingly clear that inclusion also has social and political dimensions. Some scholars have thus argued that social inclusion is a membership of society with citizenship as the basis for participating in the social, economic, political and cultural institutions of a society. Social inclusion ought to be based on the recognition of rights and responsibilities, accountability and judgment and of the fundamental equality of all and on the provision of life chances for all members of society to participate in the activities of society. Social inclusion is thus also inherently political, and it is crucial for inclusive development to address social inclusion considering the various dimensions and its effect on dimensions of well-being. Development efforts of any organization need to include and benefit people with disabilities and all marginalized groups through providing education, creating employability, promoting prosperity, reducing poverty and enhancing stability. It is obvious that people with disabilities and marginalized population are a large and most disadvantaged minority in the world. Without creating inclusiveness for these populations, we cannot realize peace, democracy and development. Importance of inclusion. 1. It is important to support people learn, productive, successful and live independently, be successful without helping them too much. 2. Inclusiveness when practiced well is very important because all people are able to be part of their community and develop a sense of belonging and become better prepared for life in the community as children and adults. It provides better opportunities for learning. 3. Inclusion values diversity and the unique contributions, where everybody brings to the milieu. In a truly inclusive setting, every individual feels safe and has a sense of belonging. A person who participates in setting life goals and take part in decisions that affect them. 4. The opportunity to participate in the typical experiences in life, to be with other people and form friendships and develop other social skills for natural lifelong learning in real situations and access to inclusion models. 5. The inclusion model is also beneficial because it prepares individuals today and in the future. Respecting diverse needs, culture, values, demands and ideas. These include race, ethnicity, age, ability, language, nationality, socioeconomic status, gender, religion, or sexual orientation. The group is diverse if a wide variety of groups are represented. Cultural diversity has become a hot-button issue when applied to the workplace. For this reason, we've created a list of the biggest diversity issues in the workplace. Acceptance and respect. Accommodation of beliefs. Ethnic and cultural differences. Gender equality. Physical and mental disabilities. Generation gaps. Language and communication. Diversity may happen in the workplace. Ethnicity, language and cultural differences. Age and generation differences. Gender and gender identity. Religious and spiritual beliefs. Disability and ability. Socioeconomic status and background. Poor and rich. Educated and uneducated. Highly educated and less educated. Rural versus urban history. Married and unmarried. Hard worker and non-hard worker. Mental health problems, a broken bar, etc. Valuing diversity. Recognizes differences between people and acknowledges that these differences are a valued asset. Multicultural education is an important component of valuing diversity. It respects diversity while teaching all children and youth to become effective and participating members of a democracy. Diversity in the workplace is vital for employees because it manifests itself in building a great reputation for the company, leading to increased profitability and opportunities for workers' quality services. Workplace diversity is important within the organization as well as outside. It is important to value diversity because people build a stronger sense of identity and well-being, and have better education and career outcomes when their diverse strengths, abilities, interests and perspectives are understood and supported. It helps dispel negative stereotypes and personal biases about different groups. In addition, cultural diversity helps us recognize and respect ways of being that are not necessarily our own, so that as we interact with others, we can build bridges to trust, respect, and understanding across cultures. Cultural diversity in relation to human diversity. So many questions may be raised, such as what language someone speaks, religion, holidays celebrated, ethnic identity, culture and the like. Our culture is what shapes us. It shapes our behavior and our identity. Culture is our way of living. It refers to the shared language, beliefs, values, norms, behaviors, and material objects that are passed down from one generation to the next. Cultural diversity in the world is diverse and a blessing gift for development, but become sources of conflict. Why? The term a culturally diverse is often used interchangeably with the concept of a multiculturalism. Recognition of the abundant diversity of cultures, respect for the differences, acknowledging the validity of different cultural expressions and contributions, valuing what other cultures offer, encouraging the contribution of diverse groups, empowering people to strengthen themselves and others to achieve their maximum potential by being critical of their own biases and celebrating rather than just tolerating the differences in order to bring about unity through diversity are important elements in defining and describing multiculturalism. The multicultural person, therefore, is not simply the one who is sensitive to many different cultures. Rather, this person is always in the process of becoming a part of and apart from a given cultural context. He or she is a formative being, resilient, changing, and evolutionary. Cultural diversity is when population differences are well represented within a community. These include race, ethnicity, age, ability, language, nationality, socioeconomic status, gender, religion, and geographical area. Here we will discuss the following diversities. Ethnic diversity. The diversity of something is the fact that it contains many very different elements. The terms race and ethnicity used interchangeably, but, generally speaking, the meanings are distinct. Race is usually seen as biological, referring to the physical characteristics of a person, while ethnicity is viewed as a social science construct that describes a person's cultural identity. It is including nationality, regional culture, ancestry, and language. An example of race is brown, white, or black skin, all from various parts of the world, while an example of ethnicity is German or Spanish ancestry, regardless of race, or Han Chinese. Cultural diversity is important because our country, workplaces, and schools increasingly consist of various cultural, racial, and ethnic groups, so that as we interact with others we can build bridges to trust, respect, and understanding across cultures. We can learn from one another, but first, we must have a level of understanding about each other. Learning about other cultures helps us understand different perspectives within the world in which we live. It helps dispel negative stereotypes and personal biases about different groups. Cultural diversity helps us recognize and respect ways of being that are not necessarily our own, so that as we interact with others we can build bridges to trust, respect, and understanding across cultures. Furthermore, this diversity makes our country a more interesting place to live. As people from diverse cultures contribute language skills, new ways of thinking, new knowledge, and different experiences are learned and developed. In uneducated or poorly educated nations, the negative effect of ethnic diversity on economic performance is that more ethnically diverse societies suffer more serious internal conflicts because quality education teaches tolerance. Inequality among the ethnic groups, when the majority dominates the minority, creates conflict. Ethiopia is made up of people of different ethnic origin. Despite the popular belief that Ethiopia is just one big country of a single ethnic group, there are over 83 different ethnic groups speaking more than 83 different languages and 200 dialects. Ethnicity is more than just language, song, and dance. It is the embodiment of values, institutions, and patterns of behavior, a composite whole representing a people's historical experience, aspirations, and a worldview. If the majority deprive minority people of their ethnicity and their culture, this situation deprives them of their sense of direction, purpose, and eventually their identity, so that conflict can be created. Such conditions can create conflicts with so much hatred, genocides may be committed and all types of crimes against humanity can be carried out. In Rwanda, the Tutsis and the Hutus fought each other in a genocide in 1994 that claimed the lives of approximately 800,000 lives. This culture of ethnic groups has not stopped but has reared its ugly head in recent years, taking the form of xenophobia, in particular South Africa. Brother has arisen against brother, to the extent of burning the other alive. Listening to reasons offered by those committing these heinous crimes leaves a lot to be desired. There is a lot of hate being passed around, with South African nationals chanting that foreigners are denying them opportunities in their own land and such should go back to their country of origin. It is sad to note that with the advent of globalization, people have been traveling to various countries, some to acquire business opportunities, some to offer a particular skill set required. And these nationals contribute economically to the success of host countries. As such, it is clear testimony that is ethnic groups is able to see past their ethnic divide. They have the potential to make Ethiopia great and the world at large. Please try these activities. 1. Who is the winner in ethnic conflict? 2. What do we learn from Rwanda? 3. What is expected from Ethiopians to enhance peace among all ethnic groups? 4. How can we create inclusive society? Benefits of cultural diversity. There are many advantages of a diverse in schools and workplaces. Organizations can benefit from employees who bring language skills, cultural experience, and creativity to the table. An organization's success can be dependent upon its ability to embrace a diverse staff. The following are some of the benefits of cultural diversities. Increased productivity. Improved creativity. Increased profits. Improved employee engagement. Reduced employee turnover. Improved company reputation. Wider range of skills. Improves cultural insights. Reduced fear, improved performance. Put a variety of worldviews into one room, and you'll come out the other side with better ideas. Boost your brand's reputation. Global impact. In the same vein, workplace diversity boosts creativity and school. So cultural diversity enriches the educational experience. Through culturally diverse classroom and in a cooperative learning, students have the opportunity to learn from people with different backgrounds and upbringings, leading to increased innovation and collaboration. It helps dispel negative stereotypes and personal biases about different groups. In addition, cultural diversity helps us recognize and respect ways of being that are not necessarily our own, so that as we interact with others we can build bridges to trust, respect, and understanding across cultures. Inclusiveness. Religious diversity. Reflect on the following issues before continuing. 1. Why religion is the causes of hatred and conflict. 2. What are the causes of conflicts? 3. Who benefit from conflict? 4. Can we create win-win through conflict? 5. How can we create win-win scenarios? What causes workplace conflict? A religious conflict is a conflict primarily caused or justified by differences in religion. In the modern period, debates are common over the extent to which religious, economic, or ethnic aspects of a conflict predominate in a given conflict. Lack of values for differences and poor management of religious institutions. Disrespect and unfair treatment of other religions. Unclear roles as followers of a given religion. Inadequate spiritual education and training or ill thought. Poor communication with each other. Lack of collaboration and poor living environment. Partiality or lack of equal treatment from political leaders. Bullying and harassment of other religion. Religious diversity is the fact that there are significant differences in religious belief and practice. It has always been recognized by people outside the smallest and most isolated communities. Roughly, pluralistic approaches to religious diversity say that, within bounds, one religion is as good as any other. Religious pluralism is an attitude or policy regarding the diversity of religious belief systems coexisting in society. Harmonious coexistence between adherents of different religions or religious denominations. To be multipath is to feel an affinity with aspects of more than one religion, philosophy or worldview, and perhaps to believe that no one is superior to the others. This term should not be confused with interfaith, which concerns the communication between different religions. Activities related to social hostility like violence, terrorism, harassment over addressing because of religious cause and religion abuse has increased. How to resolve conflict. 1. Agree on a mutually acceptable time and place to discuss the conflict. 2. State the problem as you see it and list your concerns. 3. Let the other person have his, her say. 4. Listen and ask questions. 5. Stick to one conflict at a time to the issue at hand. 6. Seek common ground. 7. Seek for win-win approaches. The win-win approach sees conflict resolution as an opportunity to come to a mutually beneficial result. It includes identifying your opponent's underlying concerns and finding an alternative which meets each party's concerns. Gender differences. In general terms, sex refers to the biological differences between males and females, such as the genitalia and genetic differences. Gender can refer to the role of a male or female in society, known as a gender role, or an individual's concept of themselves, or gender identity. Either of the two sexes, male and female, especially when considered with reference to social and cultural differences rather than biological ones. The term is also used more broadly to denote a range of identities that do not correspond to established ideas of male and female. A condition that affects people of both genders or in the other way. Sex refers to biological differences between males and females. For example, chromosomes, female 20, male Z, reproductive organs, ovaries, testes, hormones, estrogen, testosterone, and gender is the cultural differences expected, by society, culture, of men and women according to their sex. Activities. 1. Are there differences in abilities between men and women? How? 2. Why females are not equally valued with male? 3. Why male oppress female while female have irreversible biological and cultural role? 4. Why female are thought to be weak in math and science? 5. What are the consequences of not equally considering female in developments? Mental abilities. Women are generally better at language tasks, and men on average are a little bit better at organizing things in space. But really there's much more variability within the women, or within men, than there is difference between the woman and men. There are genius male-female and less geniuses in both cases. Both male and female can be gifted in math and science, engineering or any other discipline. In the past there was a claim that boys are outperforming in math and science than girls. But, some reports are showing that girls are much better than boys in academic achievements. Undeniable elements are the differences in physical abilities and behavior. Men are, in general, more muscular than women. Women are just over half as strong as men in their upper bodies, and about 2/3 as strong in their lower bodies. There are also behavioral differences between men and female. Most studies have also found testosterone to be associated with behaviors or personality traits linked with criminality such as antisocial behavior and alcoholism. In species that have high levels of male physical competition and aggression over females, males tend to be larger and stronger than females. Stereotype thinking against a woman. In his Politics, Aristotle saw women as subject to men, but as higher than slaves, and lacking authority. He believed the husband should exert political rule over the wife. Among women's differences from men were that they were, in his view, more impulsive, more compassionate, more complaining, and more deceptive. He gave the same weight to women's happiness as to men's, and in his rhetoric stated that society could not be happy unless women were happy too. Whereas Plato was open to the potential equality of men and women, stating both that women were not equal to men in terms of strength and virtue, but were equal to men in terms of rational and occupational capacity, and hence in the ideal republic should be educated and allowed to work alongside men without differentiation, Aristotle appears to have disagreed. In his theory of inheritance, Aristotle considered the mother to provide a passive material element to the child, while the father provided an active, ensouling element with the form of the human species. In Ethiopia, discriminatory attitudes and social norms are major drivers of gender-based violence where women are victims and the perpetrators are men. Factors associated with men's use of violence include rigid gender attitudes, abuses and harassments, women's participations in developments. Activities. 1. Are there relationships between poverty and participation of women? 2. Compare Africa and Europe and the level of women's participation and development. What is expected from society to equally treat a female? Our priorities are winning economic equality and securing equal rights for women, reproductive freedom and other women's health issues. An equitable distribution of life's opportunities and resources between women and men, and/or the equal representation of women and men. Every woman and girl is entitled to live in dignity and in freedom, without any fear. Caring practices for female, not violence. Equal opportunity for education and employment. Gender justice is indispensable for development, poverty reduction, and is crucial to achieving human progress. Marginalized group of people. Marginalization is a process that includes many external forces. People may be marginalized on the basis of the social, gender, cultural, ethnic, economic, social order, beliefs and other factors. Marginal groups can always be identified by members of dominant society, and will face irrevocable discrimination. Marginalized groups exist nearly everywhere. They are people who, for whatever reason, are denied involvement in mainstream economic, political, cultural and social activities. Targeting or ignoring one group can ultimately affect the whole society in all aspects of development. Marginalization comprises those processes by which individuals and groups are ignored or relegated to the sidelines of political debate, social negotiation, and economic bargaining and kept there. Neoclassical economists trace marginalization to individual character flaws or to cultural resistance to individualism. Marginalization is the result of systemic actions that the in-group takes, whether consciously or unconsciously, to alienate or disenfranchise a specific person or groups of people by sidelining them from the group's main activities and contributions. Creating friendly environments for marginalized people. 1. Tolerate for the differences, opinions and attitudes. 2. Seek out marginalized voices and perspectives and provide support. 3. Confront your own racist thought and try to be inclusive of all the differences. 4. Use your privilege to support marginalized people's movements. 5. Give your time and money, if possible, for the success of inclusive development. 6. Be proactive about inclusion in your daily life. 7. Avoid segregation. 8. Do the work that help to promote inclusiveness. The most vulnerable are women, children, aged, those living with HIV/AIDS, mental illness, minority people with language and cultural diversity, disability and the like. Girls and women from the marginalized groups are more vulnerable to violence. The dropout, illiteracy, unemployability and poverty rates among them are also high. We have reached the end of this chapter, Inclusion for Peace, Democracy and Development. To summarize what we have learned so far, inclusiveness is standing against exclusion and marginalization and the move towards peace, democracy and development. It is important to help people to become independent, develop a belief in themselves, confidence, so that they become successful without further helping them too much. Provide opportunities for children and women to have sustained social interactions and participate fully in the program. Inclusiveness values all kinds of diversities and the unique contributions of each student bring to the classroom and adults to the work and social environments. In a truly inclusive setting, every person feels safe and has a sense of belonging. Students and their parents participate in setting learning goals and take part in decisions that affect them. Finally, inclusive education creates inclusive society. This is the end of Chapter 5, Inclusion for Peace, Democracy and Development. Please make sure you have achieved the course objectives mentioned in the beginning of this chapter session. You should now be able to define peace, democracy and development. Identify sources of exclusionary practices and importance of inclusion. Discuss exclusionary practices in the community, respecting diverse needs, culture, values, demands and ideas, conflict emanated from exclusion, democratic principles for inclusive practices, and discuss the importance of inclusion for peace. Feel free to listen to this audiobook again if you are unsure. Visit our channel for the next section. Thank you for reading with us.